Welcome back, children, to another session. In the previous class, we discussed about the structure of photosystems to PS1 and PS2 as well as. And in this session, in this class, we discussed about the process of photosynthesis. The process of photosynthesis is completed by two steps. That is light dependent reaction, and then next one is light independent reaction. Two. So the complete photosynthesis process is completed by light dependent reaction and light independent reaction. This light dependent reaction means here the reactions requires light energy. That means the light is essential for some reactions. The reactions which taken place in the presence of light are called as light reaction. This is called as light reaction, and also it is called as photophosphorylation. Photophosphorylation. Because these reactions need light. When then coming to the next one, light independent reaction. Light independent, this is also called as dark reaction. This is also called as dark reaction. Here it doesn't mean dark means the reactions takes place in the night. This means you have to, this is a very important thing you have to remember is these reactions which takes place, they don't need the light. That means either they may take place in the night during the daytime or night time. And these light, in the case of step 2, light independent reactions, this reaction does not require any kind of energy. Either may take during the daytime or during the night time. They are the light independent reactions. So these are also called as dark reaction. This was discovered by a scientist Kelvin. That's why this is also called as Kelvin cycle. About this will come later, and first we'll go for the light reaction. The first one is, in the photosynthesis, the first one is light reaction. This light reaction is also, just I mentioned, it is also called as photophosphorylation. Why it is called as a photophosphorylation means, photo means light. Photo means light. Phosphorylation means during the light reaction, ATP synthesis takes place. That means the phosphate gets synthesized. By ADP receives the one inorganic phosphate, which results the synthesis of ATP. So this synthesis of ATP takes place in the presence of light. That's why this is also called as photophosphorylation. And when we come into the light, this photophosphorylation, the light reaction, takes place by two steps. The first one is non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So for non-cyclic photophosphorylation, in the previous class we discussed about the two systems. In this non-cyclic photophosphorylation, two systems, that is PS1 and PS2, both systems are involved. When we come into this non-cyclic photophosphorylation, this reaction starts with photosystem 2. That is P680. So it has a single chlorophyll A, and along with some accessory pigments, accessory pigments, and this is actually the reaction center of photosystem 2. This is photosystem 2 or P680. Then what happens? When sunlight falls on the system, the photons or get absorbed by the accessory pigments and as well as accessory pigments with different wavelengths. And when the sunlight or the solar energy falls on these accessory pigments by different wavelengths, these photons are passes into chlorophyll A. This is what we have already discussed in the previous class, isn't it? Then, when the sufficient electrons are, that means when the sunlight falls on these accessory pigments, these photons are passes into the chlorophyll A. When these photons are completely reached the chlorophyll A or it is completely received, then the electrons would get excited, where this system is also having an electron transport, that is primary electron transport or system. Primary electron transport, electron acceptor, primary electron acceptor. And the electrons, a pair of electrons would get excited and these are received by primary electron acceptor. That when these electrons, a pair of electrons are received by primary electron acceptor, these now passes through an electron chain by a 3 electron acceptors. That means here what happens, the electrons which are received by the primary electron acceptor or comes down the gradient through the electron chain by electron acceptors. These electron acceptors PQ. PQ means plastoquinone and then CY, cytochrome complex. These are the 3. And then PC, plastocyan. And these are the 3 electron acceptors which comes down. That means the electrons, these a pair of electrons are transported through these 3 electron acceptors. That means these 2 electrons comes from primary electron to plastoquinone and then plastoquinone to again these electrons are come down to the cytochrome complex. From the cytochrome complex to next these comes down to the plastocyan. Then what happens during the transport of these pair of electrons through these electron gradient? Some amount of energy get released. The energy which comes to the primary electron, which is received by primary electrons, that energy is released in the region of cytochrome complex. And the released energy is synthesized as a ATP by adding an inorganic phosphate through ADP. When the electron gradient, the energy get the energy loses, and this energy is received by one inorganic phosphate, which results the synthesis of ATP in the cytochrome complex region. Then what happens? After there is electron, a pair of electrons reach to the plastocyanine, another electron acceptor, then these electrons has been passed to next photosystem, that is photosystem 1. So as usual, the photosystem 1 is also having chlorophyll, one chlorophyll A pigment along with accessory pigments, and these accessory pigments receives the different energy wavelengths. That means as usual the sun falls on that means the solar energy when it falls on these accessory pigments, these energy pass to the chlorophyll A from accessory pigments, and as well as a pair of electrons are also, the pair of electrons has been transferred to chlorophyll A. And here next, this is the photosystem 1, that is P700. When the sufficient amount of electrons are reached to the chlorophyll A, then this chlorophyll A at the in the region of the PS1, they would get excited, and a pair of electrons are again received by primary electron acceptor of PS1. Then after receiving by the primary electron, so after received by primary electron acceptor, a pair of electrons are passes to a small electron transport chain, that is FD. FD means ferredoxin. Ferredoxin. So these electrons are, a pair of electrons are transported to ferredoxin, and from here these electrons, pair of electrons are given to NADP. This is the reducing power, NADP. Then here one more point you have to remember is, if the sunlight is fallen continuously on the chlorophyll A at the reaction center, then a pair of electrons would get excited. A pair of electrons moves one pair, and again another pair goes on, and again another pair goes on. If suppose it happens so, how long these electrons are moves from chlorophyll A, then this chlorophyll A reaction center loses the electrons. Then these electrons, how these can be replaced by? There is a mechanism, that is photolysis of water. Here, in the presence of sunlight, the water molecules get split in the presence of sunlight. Splits. This process is called photolysis of water. Photolysis. Which results, when this sunlight falls on the water, this water gets splits into a pair of electron and a pair of protons and one oxygen molecule, atom, one oxygen atom. So the splitting of water is takes place in the presence of light. That's why this mechanism is called as photolysis of water. That means photo means the water molecule splits. Lysis means splitting or a breakdown. So that breakdown of water molecules are in the presence of sunlight. So that's why this mechanism is called as photolysis of water. Here the loss, when the chlorophyll A reaction center loses the electrons due to the continuous flow of electrons which get exciting, and these two electrons are reached to the reaction center. That means here when the chlorophyll A reaction center of PS2, when it loses the electron pair, again these reaction center replaced by the electrons by the process of photolysis. And then this oxygen, when we see these, observe this oxygen, this is in a byproduct. That means the oxygen is formed due to the splitting of the water molecule. So that's why this is called as a byproduct. This oxygen which is formed due to the photolysis of water, it is a byproduct. Then what happens here? I'll write this PS2 here. P700. Then already when these two electrons are given to the chlorophyll A, and this is in a byproduct, and these two hydrogen photons are reached to the NADP. The two photons which are formed during the process of photolysis, these are received by NADP. Already this NADP is having a two electrons which comes from the photosystem, one of chlorophyll A, and it is also having two electrons. And when these two photons are reached the NADP, these NADP get reduced to NADPH. NADPH plus H plus. NAD. This is a reducing power. Or it is also written as NADPH2. So this NADPH2 or NADPH plus H plus is a reducing power, which is very useful. This reducing power is used in the dark reaction to reduce the carbon dioxide. And then once we have a recap. So in the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, when the sunlight fall on the chlorophyll A or the reaction center, these a pair of electrons get excited and are received by PEA. That means when these pair of electrons are received by primary electron acceptor, these are passes from plastoquinone to cytosine, where there is some energy is released out. That energy is used for the synthesis of ATP. That means here in case of non-cyclic photophosphorylation, the simple molecules are converted into complex molecules in the form of ATP. That means, or you can say the simple energy is converted into chemical energy, that is in the form of ATP. And then this is the pair of electrons are transported to PC, that means plastocyanin. Then these has been transported to the chlorophyll A reaction center of PS1, and from there again the two electrons are received by primary electron acceptor, and these electrons are received or passes to a small transport chain, that is ferredoxine, and here from the ferredoxine these are given to the NADP. And by the photolysis when the photolysis takes place, a mechanism, the photons which are released here are given to the NADP which results the formation of NADPH plus or NADPH, or you can write as NADPH2. This is a reducing power. So in non-cyclic photophosphorylation, ATP synthesis taken place, ATP synthesis and NADPH2 reducing power, reduction of NADPH2, and oxygen is a byproduct. This is the byproduct. And these are the things actually happens in the non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Here one more thing I would like to mention. This light reaction is taken in the chloroplast, thylakoid membrane of chloroplast. Suppose this is a thylakoid. The inner membrane of the thylakoid, here the centers, the PS1 and PS2 centers are present, and the photolysis of water takes place in the lumen of the thylakoid. This is the thylakoid, and the photolysis of water takes place in the lumen of thylakoid, and this NADP reductase, an enzyme, is present in the outer layer of the thylakoid. And this is about the non-cyclic photophosphorylation. It is the one step in the light reaction. In the next we will go for the cyclic photophosphorylation. Now I am going to give a small assignment. What is photolysis? And what are the end products of light reaction? These are the two assignment questions. You go on through and we'll meet in the next session.